All right, so we're taking a deep dive into some pretty heavy stuff today.
Yeah.
Stress. And not just the I need another coffee kind of stress, but the kind that can like really seriously mess with your mind.
Oh, yeah.
You've given us Paul Hulichich's book, Stress Pandemic, The Lifestyle Solution, and some extra research on nutrition and the brain.
Okay.
What really jumped out at me was Hulichich's claim that he cured himself of bipolar disorder just by like changing his lifestyle. Is that even possible?
It's a bold claim for sure.
Yeah.
Personal stories can be powerful, but we really need to look at the science behind it.
Right.
What's interesting is that while Hulichich's story is unique, his 9-step program actually aligns with a lot of current research on well-being.
Okay, so our mission here is kind of twofold. First, we'll explore this link between stress and mental health.
Right.
Can chronic stress really lead to serious mind conditions?
Yeah.
Then we'll break down Hulichich's 9 steps and see if there's anything in there that might actually work.
Sounds like a plan, and Hulijich isn't exaggerating when he calls it a stress pandemic.
Right.
The World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 4 people globally will experience mental health issues at some point in their lives.
Wow.
By 2020, depression was predicted to be the second largest contributor to the global burden of disease.
Wow, those stats are alarming.
Yeah.
It's like we're all living under this cloud of stress.
Yeah.
Hulijich even talks about this feeling of being constantly overwhelmed by daily tasks, like just drowning in a to-do list.
I think we've all been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That feeling of being constantly on is a hallmark of modern life, and that's where chronic stress really takes root.
Okay, so let's talk about how this stress actually works on our bodies.
Okay.
We all know about the fight or flight response, that adrenaline rush when you face a threat. But what happens when that feeling just doesn't go away?
That's when things get dangerous.
Yeah.
Imagine your brain like a superhighway with messages constantly zipping between different areas.
Okay.
Those messages are carried by chemicals called neurotransmitters, and chronic stress can really mess with that flow.
So it's not just a feeling, it's actually changing our brain chemistry.
Exactly. Take serotonin, for example. It's like your brain's chill-out chemical. When you're chronically stressed, your serotonin supply gets depleted, leaving you feeling wired and anxious.
And Hulijich is arguing that this kind of chronic stress, this messed up brain chemistry, is what led to his bipolar diagnosis, not genetics or something like that.
That's his claim.
Okay.
And it is interesting because there is a growing body of research that shows a strong link between chronic stress and the development of mental health issues. But it's a complex issue with lots of factors involved.
Okay, so let's hear about Hulichich's story. You kind of painted a picture of a pretty successful guy, right? What happened?
Hulijich was a classic overachiever. He built this huge food company from scratch, the big house, the fancy cars, the whole 9 yards. But he was driven, always pushing himself, never slowing down. And eventually it caught up with him.
He had a breakdown.
A full-blown nervous breakdown.
Oh, wow.
He ended up hospitalized and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The doctors told him he'd be on medication for life. Pretty grim, right?
That's where he basically said, nope, not accepting that. He decided to create his own path to wellness.
Yeah.
Which honestly sounds a little crazy, right?
It does.
Yeah.
But desperation can be a powerful motivator. He essentially turned himself into a human guinea pig, experimenting with different lifestyle changes, trying to regain control. And that's how he came up with his 9-step program.
So walk us through these 9 steps. What are they and how do they supposedly work?
The first step is all about taking ownership of your health.
Yeah.
It's a theme that runs throughout the entire book. Then he gets into specifics like kicking bad habits, learning to say no, practicing affirmations, exercise, nutrition, sleep, cultivating awareness, and never giving up.
You know, Hulijich is a big advocate for walking. Turns out even a short walk can boost dopamine, that feel-good chemical, helping you break the stress cycle.
That's a great point. And his emphasis on walking isn't just about the physical benefits. He talks about using those walks as a time for reflection, for clearing your head, processing your thoughts.
I also notice he's really into this earthing thing, spending time barefoot on the ground, connecting to the Earth's energy.
Yeah.
Is there any science behind that, or is it just New Age mumbo-jumbo?
It does sound a bit out there.
Yeah.
But there's some emerging research suggesting that grounding yourself to the Earth's electrical field might have a calming effect on the nervous system, even reducing inflammation.
Huh, interesting. So it's not just about feeling the grass between your toes.
There might be more to it than we understand, but from a scientific perspective, it's about balancing electrical charges.
Well, I'm willing to give it a try. Let's talk about Hulich's dietary recommendations. He's big on whole foods, cutting out processed stuff, sugar, caffeine.
Yeah.
Is that backed up by the science you've seen?
He's definitely on the right track. A lot of Hulich's dietary advice aligns with the latest research on the gut-brain connection.
This gut-brain connection is fascinating. Can you explain that in a way that even I can understand?
Think of it this way. Your gut is like a second brain.
Okay.
With billions of bacteria that can actually influence your mood and mental state. What you eat directly impacts those bacteria.
So Hulich's emphasis on a whole foods plant-based diet is about feeding those good gut bacteria.
Exactly. And it goes deeper than that. Remember how we talked about serotonin being that crucial chill-out chemical?
Right.
Well, your body needs certain nutrients to produce serotonin, particularly tryptophan. And guess what's packed with tryptophan? Leafy green vegetables, nuts, seeds, all those whole foods Hulich recommends.
His veggie pack juicing routine is starting to make a lot more sense now. But what about those of us who can't resist a good cup of coffee? Hulich says to cut out caffeine completely. Isn't that a little extreme?
He does have a point. Caffeine can actually exacerbate the stress response, making you feel more anxious and jittery. But I think it's about finding what works for you. Maybe cutting back is a good first step.
That's a good reminder that Hulich's program isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's about finding what works for your individual body and lifestyle.
Absolutely. And speaking of finding what works, we have to address the elephant in the room. Hulich claims he cured himself of bipolar disorder through these lifestyle changes. That's a big statement.
It is a very bold claim. And while his story is inspiring, it's important to remember that bipolar disorder is a complex condition. And what worked for him might not work for everyone.
Right. And it's crucial for anyone struggling with a serious mental health issue to seek professional help. Lifestyle changes can be a great complement to therapy and medication, but they're not a replacement.
It's about finding that balance, right? Taking ownership of your well-being, but also recognizing when you need professional support.
Exactly. And I think that's where Hulich's message of empowerment is so valuable. He's not saying don't take your meds. He's saying you have more control over your health than you might think.
It's about becoming an active participant in your own healing journey. Okay, so we've talked about the gut-brain connection, the impact of diet, the importance of professional help. Let's dive deeper into the science behind some of Hulich's other recommendations.
Okay.
He talks a lot about the power of affirmations. Is there any research to back that up?
There actually is. Studies have shown that positive self-talk can have a real impact on your mental and physical health. It's about consciously choosing the messages you feed your mind, replacing negative thoughts with positive affirmations.
So it's not just about thinking happy thoughts. It's about rewiring your brain, changing those deep-seated thought patterns.
Exactly. And it takes effort and consistency. But the research suggests it can be incredibly beneficial.
Hulich also emphasizes the importance of meditation as a way to calm the mind and reduce stress. I've tried meditation before, but I always find myself getting distracted. Any tips for a beginner?
Meditation is a practice, and it takes time and patience. Don't get discouraged if your mind wanders. Just gently guide your attention back to your breath or whatever focal point you're using. Even a few minutes a day can make a difference.
It's like training a muscle, right?
Yeah.
The more you do it, the easier it becomes.
Exactly. And the benefits are well worth the effort. Meditation has been shown to reduce cortisol levels, improve sleep quality, and enhance emotional regulation. It's like a superpower for your mind.
Speaking of superpowers, Hulich has this step about learning to say no. That one really resonated with me. I'm a terrible people pleaser, and I always end up overcommitting myself.
It's a common struggle, especially in today's always-on culture. But Hulich makes a great point. Saying no to things that drain your energy or don't align with your values is a crucial act of self-care. It's about setting boundaries and protecting your time and energy.
He's saying it's not selfish. It's necessary for maintaining your well-being. And honestly, sometimes saying no to others means saying yes to yourself.
I love that. It's a great way to reframe it. And it ties into Hulich's overall message of taking ownership of your health and happiness. You're the driver of your own well-being.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored the science behind stress, the gut-brain connection, the power of affirmations and meditation, the importance of setting boundaries.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to Hulich's personal story. It's pretty remarkable, right? Going from a complete breakdown to claiming he cured himself of bipolar disorder.
It is a remarkable story, and while his experience might not be typical, it does offer a powerful message of hope. He was told he'd be on medication for life, And he refused to accept that.
Hmm.
He took his health into his own hands and found a path back to well-being.
He decided to write his own ending.
Exactly. And while his approach might not work for everyone, his story reminds us that we have more power than we often realize. We can make choices to support our well-being even in the face of incredible challenges.
That's an important message,
Yeah.
especially for anyone who's feeling overwhelmed or hopeless right now. So before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, what's the one thing you want listeners to take away from this discussion about Hulichich's journey and the science behind it?
I think the most important takeaway is that you have more agency than you think.
Right.
You're not a passive passenger in your own life. You can make choices that support your well-being even in the face of challenging circumstances. Hulichich's story is a powerful example of that.
It's like he took the driver's seat and steered his own course. But he also emphasizes the importance of being patient and persistent.
Yeah.
He didn't achieve these changes overnight. It was a process, right?
Absolutely. He talks about constantly having to remind himself to keep going, even when he felt discouraged or like he was taking 2 steps back for every 1 step forward.
And that's where his final step, don't give up, comes in.
Right.
It might seem obvious, but it's easy to lose sight of that when you're struggling, when you're not seeing immediate results.
That's why Hulijich stresses the importance of celebrating small wins.
Yeah.
Each step you take, each positive choice you make is a victory worth acknowledging. And those small wins actually feed into that dopamine loop we talked about earlier, helping you stay motivated.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Those small wins lead to bigger wins, which fuel your motivation to keep going. It's a reminder that change is a process, not a destination.
Exactly. And I think that's a really important message for anyone listening who might be feeling overwhelmed or stuck. You don't have to make radical changes all at once. Start small. Focus on one thing you can do today to improve your well-being, whether it's a 10-minute walk, swapping out a sugary snack for a piece of fruit, or simply taking a few deep breaths to calm your nervous system.
Those small steps can have a ripple effect,
Yeah.
creating positive momentum that builds over time. Hulichich's story is proof of that. He didn't wake up one day and completely overhaul his life. It was a series of small, consistent changes that led to a profound transformation.
And it's a journey that's available to everyone. You don't have to have a dramatic breakdown to start taking control of your health and happiness. The power to change your life lies within you right now.
That's an empowering message to end on. So, what's the one question you'd like our listener to ponder after this deep dive into the stress pandemic? What's something they can reflect on and maybe even take action on today?
I'd ask them this. What's one small step you can take today to prioritize your well-being? What's one thing you can say yes to that will nourish your mind, body, and spirit? Remember, even a small step can set you on the path to a more balanced and fulfilling life. And as Hulijich reminds us, don't give up. Your journey starts now.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and, most importantly, empowering. Remember, you have the power to create a life that's less stressful and more joyful. It all starts with that first step.